Coming at you live, It's your boy Skillz, and this is Skillz on Sports, back after a too long hiatus. If you're looking for hard-hitting, in-depth sports knowledge and deep statistical analysis from a team of experts, or at least one expert in my case, I'm about the size of a team. If that's what you're looking for in this show, you're in the wrong place. I'm just a guy, even though once upon a time I did write for a pretty prestigious sports rag online. Those days have long since passed. I'm just a guy. I'm just a guy with opinions on sports, with random sports knowledge and things that you probably never think about when it comes to the world of sports. I can name all kinds of random people. I can name all kinds of random stats. And I can give you, like I said, opinions. If there's anything I've got in this world, it's opinions. And so typically I do a ton of research in advance of a show. Oh, by the way, let me just explain. We got a really bad glare. It looks like even a rainbow might be coming in through my upper window. I'm going to try to edit it out after the show. So please bear with me in the meantime. And if I'm not able to edit out completely, I apologize. I only have so many skills. In spite of the name, they're not unlimited skills. They're just very, 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 very strong. And what I'm good at. And what I'm not particularly good at is dealing with glares. So what we are going to talk about today, I didn't do a ton of advanced research or advanced notes of preparation. There's enough. I feel like there's enough sports news from just the last 48 hours, or even the last 24 hours, to get by for a show today with me just rambling. So that's what I'm going to do. We'll talk a little bit about the news, the big news of today. Farhan Zaidi of the Giants being axed at long last. As you see, I'm a Giants fan. And there is not a Giants fan alive who is upset. God, who knew this would be so much of a struggle? Upset with the news of Zaidi being let go. There it goes. Putting on hats backwards while looking in a screen in a camera. Also not one of my skills, apparently. But I got it done. Yeah, Zaidi is out. Buster Posey is in as his replacement. We'll get into that. We'll get into a little bit of A's talk. I was going to say that for its own show, but we may just scratch the surface of my A's material here. We got to get into the death of Dikembe Mutombo, legendary Hall of Fame NBA center. We got to get into a little bit of the NFL action from yesterday, namely the 49ers and a few other teams, few other games, few other highlights. Today the news broke around, I would say around 11 a.m., that Farhan Zaidi, and I'm saying his name wrong, probably, in fact, almost definitely, and I just really don't care because I have no respect for this man as an executive. Would I spit on him if I saw him? No. I do respect him as a human being. But as a baseball executive, as the executive of my Giants, as the main man in charge of bringing in players and sending out players to and from my Giants these last 6 years, zero respect. You see that? That's the same shape as in a donut. And a donut is pretty much what it felt like we won under his watch for every season except 2021. 2019 was bad. 2020 was worse. 2021, 22, 23, and 24 were all mediocre and disappointing. 21 was magical. 21 was a magical season, and I'm not gonna say that he had nothing to do with it. His moves and his foresight and whatever he had on, whatever was driving him to make some of these deals. Whatever he had on the Cubs general manager to get him to drop Chris Bryant in his lap for next to nothing at the time, still amazes me. I'd like to if he ever writes a book, I will read that part, how he managed to pull that deal off. But other than that, man, Nerdball didn't work out so well. And while he is not necessarily the face of what I call Nerdball, and this is no disrespect to nerds, because we need nerds in society, we just don't need them in sports. At least not making decisions on on-field personnel. Nerdball, it was never going to work long-term for the Giants. The Giants have never operated under heavy piles of statistical analysis. The Giants have never operated under heavy doses of platoons and shipping guys in and out of the roster every 48 hours for no other reason than, we might need the lefty here today, or the matchup might be better if we use this guy. The Giants never, at least not to the extent that they did under Zaidi, screwed with young people's careers the way they did these past 6 seasons. And I've called 95.7 The Game, our local sports talk show in San Francisco, California. I've called that show, or I've called that station many times on many different shows, rambling on about Zaidi and about his lack of basic understanding of how human beings operate. You give someone a job and you want them to do the job right away. Honestly, I get that. But pro sports does not work the same way as, say, FedEx. Pro sports does not work the same way as, say, Dunkin' Donuts. Pro sports does not work the same way as JCPenney. You have to treat it as its own. It's completely separate. Things are done in the sports world that are just not done the same way. They don't trade people at JCPenney. They don't demote people to the minor leagues at Dunkin' Donuts. They don't. If there's a problem with someone's performance, they're usually given a chance within reason to make it right. They're trained. My point is this. In Major League Baseball, we'll stick with baseball for example. For the example I'm going to use here, we'll put basketball and football off to the side for now. But in baseball, I'm trying to figure out, and I've always said this, you cannot expect anyone to come into the major leagues, which is probably the hardest of the sports leagues in terms of achieving, athletics, succeeding athletically. Hitting a baseball is harder to do than making a basket or throwing a pass, except for the part where the giant men land on you. That part could be a problem. At least in baseball, that's not going to happen very often. But when you reach the major leagues, you call up to the major leagues. Luis Matos comes up to the major leagues, goes 0 for 6. Let's say he goes 0 for 6, first couple games. All right. Let's say he's 1 for 9 after 3 games. Let's say he's 2 for 14 after 4 or 5 games. And then you ship him out. Okay, that's somewhat reasonable depending on the team's need. But what I'm getting at, there's a little bit of when you're developing a player, that player needs to understand. If your goal really is to truly develop the player, he's got to understand that you've got his back. He's got to understand that it's going to take extended failure for you to give up on him. He's got to understand that he's in the major leagues. Anyone, even the best of the best, can go 2 for 14 in a 4 or 5 game stretch. Who was it? Chris Davis, not the ace Chris Davis, but the former Oriole Chris Davis. What was he? 0 for 53 over a period of time. 0 for 53. This was a guy who had been a home run champion. All right, this was a guy who'd had a 50 homer season. This was a guy who'd had MVP votes in his career, and he went 0 for 53. If it can happen to him, and you're expecting a youngster to come in and dominate right away, and you're going to ship him out right away if he doesn't, and then of course, if you're on the Zaidi train, if you're on a team run by Farhan Zaidi, you might get shipped out even if you do succeed, as what happened to Hayden Birdsong when he struck out 12. I believe that was in July or August. Might have been early August. I forget. And he struck out all those guys. Had a great start, and because of all of Farhan's roster doodah and manipulations, he didn't get to stick around. He was shipped down to San Jose, which is Class A. He didn't even get to go to Sacramento. The beds might be a little softer in Sacramento than they are in San Jose. He at least deserved that much, right? It was bad enough that Zaidi wasn't letting the youngsters, most of them, get a fair shot at succeeding. It was bad enough that was happening, and it made it even worse now that he was punishing the players who were succeeding. And Marco Luciano, when he was hitting well earlier this season, but he was feeling like a total jerk, feeling like a total jackass. And I'm with you. Marco should not have been playing defensively at shortstop at the major league level at that point. But when he was hit as well as he was hitting for a period of time, there had to be something you could have done to make it work. Zaidi didn't want that, apparently. I don't know if Bob Melvin wanted it. I'm not inside. I don't know what kind of attitude Luciano had about being in the major leagues. If he was major league mature enough, I can't say. But what I can tell you is he was doing what a few other guys on the team were doing, which was hitting the baseball hard. And he deserved more in that early going than to just be dumped back in Sacramento to make room for guys like, I don't know, who's on, Nick Ahmed was up at the time, Casey Schmidt, who's proven repeatedly that he's not going to have long-term success in all likelihood in the major league level. Farhan screwed with so many careers, giving them little tastes of the major leagues, holding the carrot out in front of them just long enough for them to taste it, and then pulling it back away the minute they expressed the carrot wasn't perfect. The minute they showed that they were actual human beings learning on the job, which is, how else are you going to learn the major leagues? You have to learn the job. Not everyone's going to come into major leagues hitting 440. And that's what Zaidi expected. He expected all these guys to come in here and bat over 400. Otherwise, they're going to get shipped out. And I called the game many times. Well, one of the calls was about Zaidi's, what I believe was his preference for his own guys. I strongly believed and do still believe, just like, and this is one thing, I don't hold this particularly against him because most executives probably feel this way. I believe that Zaidi wanted his guys and only his guys to succeed. If you notice that the trio of the O squad, as I call them, Ramos, Luciano, and Matos, who I just mentioned, that trio, and some of the other guys on the team who have been ping-ponged up and down from the minor leagues, whose names I don't have right in front of me, but you know who they are if you're a Giants fan. A lot of these guys came from Bobby Evans, the previous general manager before Zaidi came along. They were under the Bobby Evans and Brian Sabian tandem, which ran through 2018. Well, Evans was fired near the end of 2018. He didn't make it all the way to the season's end, but his guys had already been drafted and put in the organization by then. And for the last 6 years, they've been developing and not really gotten a fair shot. Now, in fairness, to Luciano, he wasn't going to see Brandon Crawford right away, and that's, I can't. But if the organization really felt that he was ready, or like what most organizations will do, they'll at least audition the guy, and he got an audition. He wasn't horrible. He wasn't great. There's enough there to say, hey, maybe you can stick for a little while. Now that's 2023. Now, come 2024, Crawford's gone. I'm not saying that you should have just immediately started Luciano at shortstop, but I'm saying I think he had more upside than Nick Ahmed did. Nick Ahmed is the guy right now who's on his 4th National League West team out of 5, and all have happened since the end of last season, when he was cut by Arizona on the way to the World Series run in early September, I think it was. And he's since gone through San Francisco, Los Angeles, and most recently San Diego. And I guarantee you, unless he just sucks his way out of baseball entirely, he will play with the Rockies, the 5th division team, before it's all said and done. You heard it here first. And by the way, he wouldn't be the only guy who's done that. Kelly Johnson played for all 5 AL East teams a few years, about 10 years ago, and I think there was another guy who I'm blanking on right now, but that's neither here nor there. My point is, at some point you have to give the youngsters a shot. If you really, I have no doubt in my mind, if Zaidi had drafted Luciano would have been the guy from opening day on in 2024. Once Crawford was, and don't even get me on how he treated Crawford on the way out the door. That's a show in and of itself. Matos, I'm not sure about. Ramos had to basically make history to really cement his spot on the team. First by, he made that all-star team. We didn't have too many other options at the time. Blake Snell hadn't turned it around yet by that time, not completely. You could have gone with, I suppose you could have gone with, well, Logan Webb did go, right? And then you had Duvall, who was an option, but who he eventually tailed off. Now he's out of favor, and who knows what's going to happen with him. But Ramos made history by becoming the first righty hitter to go yard into the cove on the fly. And if it wasn't for that kind of level of talent and setting him apart and making him stand out from all the others, I think he would have still been yo-yo just like the others. He would have had to hit as well as he hit, which was at an all-star level. He had to hit at an all-star level to be left alone in the outfield. And even then, it was only because of injuries to Jung-Hoo Lee and different other guys at different points of the season, because just about all the outfield was injured at one point or the other during the season. I think Yastrzemski made it through unscathed. Even he might have been out for a little bit, but not I don't think he was out for an extended period, if memory serves. So I'm rambling here a bit. You have to understand, when a day like this comes, you've waited for this day for so long. I waited for this day for at least 2 years, because by the end of 2022 it was clear that all the magic, whatever magic that went down in 2021, was a fluke. And if you look back on all those guys from that season, if they're even still in baseball, they're not nearly producing at the level that they did that year. That was just magic. That was a bunch of guys having career years at the same time, which you can't count on. You can't count on Mike Tauchman, of all people, jumping up and saving games with leaping catches at the wall. You can't count on Yastrzemski, guys like him, off the scrap heap hitting game-tying grand slams late in the game, and you can't count on every trade turning out to be Lamont Wade for Sean Anderson. Farhan did some good, but he ultimately failed to bring in stars. He failed. Eventually, you have to just own up to what's real. And what's real is he failed. Stars do not want to play for him or the team he's running, because they know that he will yank them around at some point. Probably, what's the point I'm looking for? When you lowball them on a contract offer? That's where all these opt-outs come from, favoring the players. And then he will just generally, you'll be platooning. You'll be sitting out against left-handers. You'll be pinch hit for late in the game unless you're a great player, because the manager usually has no control over what's going on under Zaidi. Kapler sure never did. I don't think Bochy probably had to fight for every bit of control he had left in that last season he managed under Zaidi. And then you have Melvin. Melvin was under Zaidi and others in the A's front office for years in the mid-O's, or sorry, the mid-10s. Melvin was following orders the whole time, most of it. I think Melvin certainly had more authority probably over than someone like Kapler. But Melvin, all you need to know about who was running things when Melvin was the A's manager for all those years, Melvin did have his share of authority. I fully believe that. But look at the 2018 AL wildcard game. Who started that game? Then middle reliever Liam Hendricks. Oh, let me correct that. Let me amend that. Then mediocre middle reliever Liam Hendricks started that game against the Yankees. Because that's what the spreadsheet told Bean and Zaidi and all those guys in the office. Forrest, was Forrest still there? Whatever. Whoever was in the office at the time, front office at the time, told Melvin to start Liam Hendricks, who has since gone on to become a lights-out closer and a cancer survivor. Good for him. But at the time, he was a lowly middle reliever on a team trying to get to the postseason. They threw him out against the Yankees, and what did he do? Within 2 batters, the A's were down 2-0. Aaron Judge took him yard. That was on Zaidi and his direct superiors. So if Zaidi was calling the shots, even then, Zaidi and his group, I'm pretty sure Zaidi was calling the shots to Melvin even now. With more power, of course he was. With more power on a worse team, of course Zaidi was calling those shots. Never mind that Zaidi was the reason why probably the team was worse. I'm willing to bet that if Melvin was left alone to manage the way Bochy was for most of his time there, I'm willing to bet that Melvin would have probably won at least 5 more games. Do I have any direct evidence to support that? No, it's just a hunch. It's just my gut, and that's what baseball's forever and ever. That's what baseball primarily ran by, was the gut feeling of the manager. The manager went with numbers to an extent, yes. From everything I've read and understood, Earl Weaver, the Hall of Fame Orioles manager, was big on numbers and platooning and things like that. But he also had the sense to know, hey, if someone is 2 for 2, I don't care if he's going righty-righty. I'm going to let him stay in there. He's hot. If someone strikes out 12 guys in 5 innings of a ball game, I'm not going to reward him with a trip to San Jose. All right? So, in closing, I'm just going to close this subject by saying, not one Giants fan laments this move, the dismissal of Farhan. Not one fan is going to miss him. I can only hope that one day we get that magic of 2021 back. I don't expect to win 107 games again. I do expect to win somewhere around 85 to 90. I do expect a team that's going to compete all the way to the finish line. I do expect a team that's not going to run through 60 dudes for no damn good reason other than matchups and poor planning, poor foresight, or just because the Tigers happen to release somebody, or Mark Canna just happened to be available, so let's just get him, even though he serves no purpose to what we're trying to do right now. And there's already people playing his position. Uh-oh. Zaidi sent the cops after me. It was at the ambulance. They're coming to get me. I've said too much. I better change the subject. The Zaidi news, like I said, broke around 11 this morning, West Coast time, and it interrupted what had been, up to that point, a sad morning. It took the attention away from the sadness of losing Dikembe Mutombo, the Hall of Fame center for the Denver Nuggets, Atlanta Hawks, Houston Rockets, some other teams in the middle. I bet you forgot he played for the Knicks. He did, for a whole season. That, I just can't, I'm glad I forgot that, because I just cannot picture him in that orange and blue. Dikembe Mutombo, shot blocker extraordinaire. I think he's somewhere around 4th or 5th all-time in shots blocked. He was a force for the Nuggets for years at the beginning of his career. Then he went on to Atlanta, became a force for them for years. He then kind of started to bounce around a little bit, went to Philadelphia, went to the Knicks. Eventually, he was with the Nets at one point also. He eventually ended up with the Rockets as a backup to Yao Ming for a number of years. And then I believe he suffered a torn... See, this is why I should have researched before I talk to you, because I'm not sure about this. It was a torn Achilles. It was some sort of serious major lower body injury that ended his career in 2009. All right? I'll have it corrected in the notes. Mutombo played forever, and no one really knew how old he was. Everyone suspected he could have been as many as 3 or 4 years older than what he was claiming to be. It's just one of those things that we'll never know the full truth about. And also, if you didn't know, Dikembe Mutombo is not his entire name. He actually had... I'm not making this up. I'm not trying to be funny. He actually had like 6 or 7 more additional last names coming out of Africa. He just went with the first two of his many, many names. I'm not going to even try to look up or list them all here. I might list it in the notes. But yeah, Dikembe Mutombo was the first. Those were the first 2 of his names, and that's what he went by throughout his career. And you know, you always had the finger wag. No, 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 no. When you came in Mutombo's house and he sent you away, and he sent you away usually emphatically, you got the wag. No, 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 no. And that's going to bring me to my most my most memorable moment from Mutombo's career. My personal memorable moment. A lot of people are talking about, as I read about his death on X, talking about the moment when his Denver Nuggets in '94, his 8th seed Denver Nuggets knocked out the #1 Seattle Supersonics, and Mutombo held the ball lying on the floor, held the ball over his head in triumph, with this look on his face that was, whoa, you know, he's just pure unbridled joy. It was one of the images of the NBA of the '90s, was Mutombo knocking out the Sonics. And then, of course, you have the famous commercial with Mutombo that came out after he quit playing, where he's running through the store, knocking everything out of people's hands, like cereal boxes and, you know, just whatever, going, no, 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 ha, 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 ha. And that voice that only he could. Many have tried to imitate it perfectly. More sirens. But the voice. Dikembe Mutombo voice. This is my best Dikembe Mutombo voice. And it's terrible. And it makes my throat itch. I will never do that again. And that's what you use to remember when you think about Mutombo. What my favorite Mutombo memory, or at least the one that sticks with me the most, Atlanta was playing the Bulls. I believe this was in '97 or so. And somebody came down the lane, down Mutombo's lane, and he rejected him. No, no, no. He turned to the crowd under the basket. No, 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 no. And while he's doing all that, the ball's still loose in play. Scottie Pippen picks the ball up. With Mutombo's back turned and him wagging to the crowd, Pippen has a free lane to the basket and dunks it. And I think after that, we saw less and less and less of the WAG, if we saw it at all. I think, was Lenny Wilkins still the Hawks coach at the time? I'm not sure, or Fratello. I think Fratello might have been the Hawks coach at the time. I'm pretty sure they had a discussion about when it's appropriate to wag fingers. Wait till the whistle has been blown before you wag fingers from now on, Dikembe. And then I'm pretty sure Dikembe, being, you know, a team player, okay, that's what I'll do. So he passed away today at age 58. Or at least, I don't know if he passed away today, but today is when it was announced, around 8 in the morning. He passed from brain cancer. I didn't even know he had brain cancer. I didn't even know he was sick at all. He was 58 years old. At least that's the age that we're being told. He's 58. And I'm not sure about any services or any family left behind, but I do know that there's a lot of tribute being poured in from fans and opposing players and teammates and everyone who associated with him, how good of a man he was. And I never met him. I can't testify to that, but I've never heard anything bad said about him. The worst thing he ever did was wag while Scottie Pippen was dunking, sounds like, by most accounts. So rest in peace to Dikembe Mutombo, one of the all-time great centers in league history, especially during the 90s. One of the great shot blockers ever was. And condolences to his family and his friends. We'll save the A's talk. I want to give the A's their own conversation. I won't talk about the A's here. I'll just go a little bit over the 49ers game yesterday. And the Niners did defeat the New England Patriots by a score of 30-13. The last time they played the Patriots in the regular season was in 2020, and they defeated them that day 33-6. This game here yesterday was not quite the romp that game was in 2020. In 2020, they were just dominated. Jeff Wilson ran through everybody. He got 2 touchdowns, if I remember correctly, 1 receiving and I think 1 rushing. It was just it was a whipping through and through. This game here yesterday was not a whipping through and through. It was just a slow, methodical dissection. New England, and to be fair, New England's offense is not of NFL quality right now. It just isn't. There's Jacoby Brissett, who's been in the league for a long time, but he's never really been a successful starter for any extended period of time. He's starting now by default. They have that backup guy, Drake May, I think is his name. He was like a number 3 pick or 3rd round pick or whatever he was for the Patriots. See, I didn't look up these things for the show. I'm coming from the heart today. But they're giving Brissett every chance to keep the job for the time being. Why that is, I'm not sure. Coach Mayo doesn't think May is ready. And for me personally, I'm kind of glad that May isn't in the lineup, because reading articles that address both May and Mayo so far, as few of them as there have been so confusing. I'm passing a rule that the head coach and the backup quarterback or the rookie quarterback or anyone who's going to be mentioned a lot in any article written during the season cannot have similar names. Names that similar. I'd rather they have the same name than have similar names that are different. At least that way I could look for the initial and know right away who I'm talking about. Drake Mayo would work fine. Coach Gerard May would work fine. But I can't do May and Mayo. So for the love of God, Brissett, turn it around. Get some yards. Stay on your feet. Stay upright. He was taking a beating against the Niners yesterday. Apparently that's what he's been taking all season. New England's 1-3. They're not looking good. They've had some injuries, but Niners had some injuries too. Niners did get Deebo Samuel back for the game yesterday. They did get George Kittle back for the game yesterday, and both made contributions. Samuel had a real nice deep pass caught. George Kittle made a touchdown catch over 3 dudes while Samuel was open running a crossing route midfield, which if Kittle had not caught that ball, I think Samuel might have slapped poor Brock Purdy for missing him, because he was so open over the middle. But Kittle did make that play over 3 defenders, or through 3 defenders, helping the Niners advance up that. Was that their first touchdown? No, that was their first offensive touchdown. Their first touchdown, of course, came from Fred Warner returning a pick, 50, 60 yards, however long it was, to the house, with a little help from a push at the end by one of the New England linemen. No one's talking about this. I don't think Warner gets in that end zone, and he may not have gotten in the end zone anyway. He may have been a little. He may have hit the ground out of bounds before his hand and ball touched the pylon. They replayed it, and they kept him with there wasn't enough to overturn it. But I swear I saw an angle where he hit out of bounds before he hit the pylon. But we're gonna pretend, for argument's sake, that didn't happen. All right. Here's Warner running up the right sideline, and as he's getting towards the end zone, one of the Patriots linemen, I don't know who, I didn't research. I told you I didn't do any research. Tries to push him out of bounds. What he ends up doing is pushing him towards the end zone, which gave Warner that much more momentum to take flight and land on that pylon and give 6 for the Niners. Years ago, when I was living in Sunnyvale, this must have been around like 2005 or 6. I remember watching a Raiders game where the opposing running back, and I wish I had this on film somewhere. I wish I knew who the opponent even was. The opposing running back for the Raiders had gotten through, maybe gained about 2 or 3 yards going off tackle or something like that. And trying to bring him down, one of the defensive linemen or one of the linebackers kind of grabbed, he was trying to kind of lasso him and throw him to the ground, but instead what he ended up doing was spinning him upfield. He spun the guy upfield, gave him all the more minutes. It was a huge gain. I don't think it was a touchdown, but it ended up being a huge game for the opposing the opponent of the Raiders that day, whoever it was. When the defenders help the running backs, or in this case, the offensive players help the defensive player who's returning a pick to the house, they'll take it. You want to help us score? You're supposed to actually try to stop us from scoring. But if the opponents want to help you score, hey, go for it. Fred Warner, I always thought Fred Warner had gone his whole career without missing a game. Turns out he missed one at the end of 2021. I think that was for rest purposes. Actually, it was like half injury, half rest. It's one of those games where he probably could have played if the game meant something, which it must not have. I always thought that Warner had been a true Iron Man since he came into the league. He's missed that one game, but he's still, that's incredible. Now he's dealing with some ankle problem right now, ankle soreness. He missed the second half of the Patriots game, and it's not looking great for him coming up. He says he's okay, but a lot of guys say they're okay, and they're really not. And the Niners, of course, you can't really trust anything they say about injuries these days. Hashtag Christian McCaffrey. What they say is not always what's really happening. So we got to keep a close eye on what's going on with Fred Warner's ankle. We got to make sure that Christian, whatever they did to him in Germany, it didn't involve Ivan Drago or any other Germans we should be afraid of, that they really did try to help him. Because I don't care however good Jordan Mason is has so far been damn good. I mean, he's been out of this world. For a guy who barely played previous couple seasons, for a guy who wasn't even expected to play or supposed to play regularly this season, for him to contribute what he's contributed to the Niners. He had a touchdown yesterday, among other big plays. It's amazing. And the Niners, and this is the one word I have for you for the 49ers, for the Mason contributions: luck. They are lucky that he is shaped up to be what he's been. The Niners are not 2-2 without Jordan Mason. The Niners might be 0-4 without Jordan Mason. They just might be. Because Mason set up a lot of those plays made by the receivers. Ayuk had the big diving catch. That's what you're going to see on the highlight. You're going to see that deep Willie Mays style catch by Juwan Jennings, who's looking more and more like a number one receiver with each passing week. You're going to see that on the highlights. But Mason set up a lot of that with his runs, dashing through the holes, cutting through, running through guys here and there. But he's still, as good as he's been, he's not McCaffrey. He's not. No one is. Maybe Derrick Henry is the only guy who can really compare to McCaffrey. And even I don't think he has, as great as Derrick Henry is, he might be just a little behind McCaffrey on athleticism and ability to catch out of the backfield. He could be a little bit behind him there. It's close. They're both great players. They're both going to the Hall of Fame. Well, Henry is for sure. McCaffrey is kind of on the bubble, but close. One more great season, I think McCaffrey gets into. But that season might not be this season. Let's be real. That season might not be this season. He might not play this season. He's already missed 4 games. He's going to miss at least 2 more. Achilles and calves, they've been known. Kevin Durant. If you're a Bay Area sports fan, Kevin Durant is all you need to hear. if McCaffrey is indeed battling an Achilles problem that's so prevalent that he had to go to Germany to get it treated, then we have a problem on our hands. It may not be as big as a problem as we thought with Jordan Mason in McCaffrey's step. What if Jordan Mason pulls a hamstring? You can't keep plucking guys like McCaffrey out of the sky. And we've been so lucky, because over the years, our running back depth, the 49ers running back depth, has been tested over and over again. Over and over again. Injuries to Raheem Mostert. And what happened? We found Jeff Wilson. Jeff Wilson got hurt. We found Jermichael Hasty, who was good for a little while, who's now with the Patriots. By the way, I didn't know that. I'm missing another guy in between those. Who am I missing? I'm missing someone else. We drafted Elijah Mitchell, of course, who's out for this season. We've been very fortunate on the running back front to be able to pluck guys in and plug holes. Matt Breida was there for a while, and he's on the market too. I don't think he signed with anybody. He was in the camp with the 49ers, of course. I don't think he signed with anyone yet. This is one of those things I would have looked up if I had been competent. So I'm not gonna sit here and it doesn't do any good to sit here and worry about what could happen to Mason, even though realistically, it's a possibility that if he goes down, we are truly screwed. He's getting heavy run. He's getting run 3 and 4 consecutive plays, just like McCaffrey used to be. And I'm not going to sit here and criticize Shanahan because he knows his team better than I do, but I will say this. If it's possible that a extra heavy workload like McCaffrey had last season is contributing to what's wrong with him now, and it certainly didn't help, and I have no one to fall back on if something were to happen to his replacement, Mason, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to create new habits for Mason and maybe just work in the rookie backs, whoever else is on the roster. I forget the backup to Mason's. I forget his name. Or I'm going to get in someone like when they brought in Tevin Coleman to share duties with Matt Breida. I'm going to get in a veteran off the street, split time. I'm not going to run Mason to the ground. He's coming close to doing it. He's coming close to giving Mason that same heavy workload. And I think the Niners have proven, and it's not to take away from anything Mason has done, I think they've proven that this system is strong enough to where, I won't say any running back could succeed in it, but I will say that most running backs worth a damn, if they're good enough to be in the NFL, they can at least gain a few yards on per series while Mason is catching his breath. And there's no reason. If you didn't think they could do it, why would you draft them, right? So, Kyle, if you're listening to me, if anything I say matters to you at all, which I would bet by any body part that it doesn't, but if by freak chance it does, if Skillz on Sports is a valuable source of information and guidance on how you coach your football team, I'm going to just ask you, ease up on the workload to poor Jordan Mason before he ends up like poor Christian McCaffrey. And when McCaffrey comes back, if he comes back this season or whether it's next season, ease up on that workload too. Christian's going to be 30 here before long. You gotta just be mindful of that. All right. I think while I'm ahead, there's other things I could delve into right now, but I'm not going to do it without proper research. So I will say this has been Skillz on Sports. I will say goodbye for now, and I will give you another show covering the Oakland A's, my experience at the Wednesday night final night game at the Oakland Coliseum with the A's last week. I'll give you that show coming up in the next 2 days, and I hope you enjoyed this one a little bit. And I'm sorry about the glare once again. So this is Skillz